What's up, chat? How's it going? Welcome to a Monday video. Oh no, I just filled my water bottle and then I left it on my sink. Oops, that's okay. It's Demons Day today, folks. We've got some demons to talk about. 4 new detachments for Chaos Demons, and oh boy, are they a roller coaster ride to read. So we're going to read through them today. I don't know if we're going to have time to do a list build because it is 4 separate detachments. I don't think that's going to be, that's probably going to be a lot, but I'll probably be talking about some list builds I'm toying with these guys. In the near future, I'll definitely have some list build videos for YouTube channel members when I start playing around with them. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Good morning, good morning, good morning. We're just coming off playing demons this weekend, so I'm psyched. I'm psyched for this discussion. I think it should be pretty interesting. Yeah, let's I don't know, let's dive in. So yeah, here's kind of the gist. Here's the gist of my thoughts. My biggest problem with Chaos Demons, although I think I have a second biggest problem, which is that Space Marines are broken, and I think Space Marines hard counter demons. That's unfortunate for demons, and I'm not sure that these detachments do anything to resolve that. In fact, I think that they make the matchup worse. So we'll see how that goes.
Ryan G donated $5 through Super Chat. Bird flu is back, baby. These aren't flux tokens. They're flu tokens now.
I don't know about that. We'll see. I think bird flu might be dead. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan, though. So yeah, my biggest problem with Chaos Demons was like, well, like they're so inconsistent, it's crazy. You have this great maneuverability, you have like good defensive mechanics, you know, field of pains on a bunch of stuff, redeployments, anti-shooting auras, all that sort of thing. But once they get into melee, right, which is where they have to do all their damage, they have there's no capacity to ensure that they actually deal their damage. These detachments are like, all right, you can have rerolls, but then like the monkey's paw finger curls. It's like you can have rerolls, but they're terrible, and they make your army die. And you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I didn't want those, actually. So we'll see how it is. I think these detachments generally seem fine, but I don't think that... The index is very clearly sort of built with the datasheets in mind, and they synergize so well. The detachment role and the army ability were basically constructed together. They synergize incredibly well together, and... the problem that I have is that as soon as you jump out of that index detachment, the army doesn't feel cohesive, and I think that feels like it's sort of a it might be an issue with these detachments once we start talking about them. But obviously, we'll go ahead and jump in. Everyone gets moved through terrain is great. I will agree with that. Yeah, there are some good mobility improvements to make up for the fact that you don't have. The Realm of Chaos to pull stuff back out into reserve and then Shadow drop it back in with Demonic Incursion. But I think that goes to show you how integral the Demonic Incursion detachment is to the design of the entire faction, because they basically needed to Armor of Contempt the faction with a move through wall strat, with like a Knights of Shade, in order for it to work at all. So like there's a lot of work that has to be, there's a lot of heavy lifting that has to be done by these rules. Now, I think one thing that's important to note, as we do with a lot of these detachments, because demons were previously a single detachment faction, I think that it's going to be a good thing to talk about when we discuss the original detachment. So let's go ahead and hop over, and we'll do a review of OG Demonic Incursion. I'll move my viewer over a little bit. Hold on. There you are, buddy. So Shadow of Chaos remains as the faction rule, which is obviously the whole Shadow of Chaos mechanic. There's going to be some stuff in these detachments that key off of it. You get +1 to your leadership or your battle shock tests when you're shadowed. Regenerate wounds when you pass battle shock. The enemy is -1 and suffers wounds. What you lose, however, is Warp Rift. So you lose this 6-inch deep strike as long as you're wholly within Shadow of Chaos. You also, losing the detachment also means that you lose the enhancements. And I think these might honestly be more of a big deal than the other stuff, because these have the like greater demon data sheets, at least, were basically built around having these enhancements attached. So without these, a lot of these greater demons are going to feel way less powerful than you're normally used to. Argath, King of Blades, +2 strength and attacks, Endless Gift of 4+ Feel No Pain for a good and clean one. Everstave, 6 extra range and a lower change, +2 strength. And then the Soul Stealer regenerate wounds. There is basically a Soul Stealer in the Slaanesh detachment, but that one is less exciting. So yeah, so that's what's going on. That's what we're giving up to walk into these detachments. But we do get some other stuff. So where should we start, folks? Which allegiance should we jump up in? Slash is the best detachment when it comes to the combination of fluff and strength. I do think Slash is incredibly fluffy. I agree with that for sure. I think the Tzeentch one is also incredibly fluffy. I think the detachment ability is trash. It's really bad. Basically improves your opponent's army. But I do think, like, it is, you know, for the fickleness of the you know, the changer of ways. I think that's it's very incredibly appropriate, right? They and a lot of these detachments, and I will give this, you know, the credit to the design team. A lot of the detachments have encapsulated the lore of the game almost perfectly, right? We have things like the Reaper's Wager from the Drakari detachment. We have stuff like the Orc one, right, where you get like bad orders. That's very funny. The Chaos Knights one, where you sacrifice guys. These are all, the detachments are all incredibly cool. Whether or not they're strong, though, that remains to be seen for sure. Tzeentch one is better the more you read it. So I think the thing to keep in mind is the stuff that you're using it on for the most part. But we'll talk about it when we get to the detachment. Should we start with Khorne? All right, we'll start with Khorne. Yeah, Khorne's pretty straightforward. The Blood Legion. And to be honest, Khorne, I think I might be the most excited about. Besides Nurgle, I think Khorne has the most internal synergy out of any of the Allegiance keywords, mostly because of Rendmasters. So if you're building a Khorne army, then it's pretty good. I should also mention as well, and I think that this is another important thing to note, that while we're talking about this stuff that we're losing, and I know this has probably been reiterated a million times, but you don't give up. There are no requirements for your army composition. So you, in order to take any of these, you don't give up like souping in any additional demons from different allegiances, and you don't give up Bellicor. So you're still going to have the anti-shoot auras. Your deep strike's not as powerful, but you'll still be able to take any, you know, utility units, any other stuff from other allegiances in any of the detachments. So what we're mostly looking at is like the ability to stack and synergize these allegiance specific effects onto a couple of units, and then the rest of your army is mostly going to remain the same, I imagine, which is cool. Like, that's good. And I think, you know, the fact should be changed quite a bit if you didn't have like a Bellicor's Please Don't Shoot Me aura or something, right? Because that's huge. That's a big old deal. All right, so we're on the Blood Legion detachment for Khorne. The detachment rule: each time an enemy unit ends a normal or advanced move within 6 inches of one or more Legionnaires Daemonic Khorne units from your army, you can make a surge move towards that unit. To do so, roll d6. Models in your unit move a number of inches up to this result, but your unit must end that move as close as possible to the enemy unit. When doing so, you can be moved into engagement range of that unit. So it's just a surge move. Just the normal surge move. And it is, I believe, thanks to... I actually didn't look this up, but I assumed that this was obeyed all the surge rules. But I don't know if surge rules have to specify that you do so after taking casualties. Which means that if it's not, you could potentially surge multiple times. Let me double check that, actually. Sorry, folks. So I'm gonna take a peek here. Good thing it's like on page 2. No, it is after any trigger. Yeah. So the restrictions are for surge moves like this. You cannot do so while battle shocked. You cannot do so while in engagement range. You can only make one surge move per phase. So this does say each time, but it means that once per phase for each unit, which is important. It is only a 6-inch trigger, so it's a reactive move that forces you to go closer. It is optional, so you don't have to do it. Basically, what it's gonna do is it's gonna disincentivize your opponent from screening you super hard, or at least it's gonna force them to screen back. Like they're not gonna movement block you very much, because if they move within, let's say they run up to go 4 inches away from you, there's a 50-50 chance that you just engage them and then kill them. That's essentially all it does. It is unfortunate that it doesn't affect fallback moves, because I think that would be incredibly powerful. It is only normal or advanced. So if you engage something and they fall back from you, then you just hang out. You just chill there for a bit. And that also means that engaging people at the end of your turn is actually not that great for you, unless you can stop them from shooting or something. The enemy can hold you in melee, so you can't make any surge moves for their entire movement phase, and then fall back is the last action during that phase. Yeah, good players will stay 6.1 inches away. Yep. Yeah, there would be then, like, there's essentially no reason for anybody to get within 6 inches of you on a move. So yeah, it's honestly, like, it's a quality of life, but it's pretty weak. To be fair, because your capacity to play around it is super duper easy. And in order to sort of push your units aggressively up, you have to be up in your opponent's face. And let me tell you, Khorne units not hard to kill. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, so his units die immediately. So if you're pushing super far forward in order to try to muck up your opponent's movement phase, they're just gonna like stand still and shoot you, because they can also just remain stationary too. Blood Tainted is the second detachment ability. At the end of a phase in which a Legionis Daemonic Khorne unit from your army destroyed an enemy unit that was within range of an objective marker, at the start of that phase, if your unit has a higher level of control over that objective marker, the objective marker remains under your control until your opponent's level of control over the objective is greater than yours. So it stickies objectives when you kill enemies on them. Interestingly, it locks them at the end of any phase, and it doesn't care what kind of attack you use to kill them. It just cares that you killed them with a Khorne unit. So if you use ranged attackers like Soul Grinders or Skull Cannons, you can potentially put high LOC onto an objective, right, in the movement phase, shoot them in the shooting phase, you kill a scout unit, whatever, that's standing on the objective, and suddenly you've stickied it for the rest of the game, your opponent has to go get it. So you can use your utility units to basically like sticky stuff without necessarily having to even attack enemies there. You do have to hold the objective, though, and that's where things get tough, because you need to have Khorne units moving out, so you need like Fleshhounds like ranging into that area, basically. I think for the most part, what this is going to do is when you like do a rapid ingress, like you ingress your opponent's back line, move, kill them on the like their home objective or something, you lock the home objective and then can leave it. This kind of feels like playing Scarbrand in Warhammer Total War, where he just leaves. He burns your city and leaves a little army behind, and creates a little blood host army that wanders around, that you have to then go deal with before you take the city back. Which is, I don't know, maybe where the inspiration came from. But I think that's essentially where it's going to go. It's not a huge, like, it's hard to play around getting that ability off, but there are going to be situations where it can shore up your primary score. You can stand on the objective in the middle, and they can't stand on it to do actions, otherwise you'll surge. Yeah, that's a good point, right? They can't contest objectives without charging, because you'll just engage them. That's actually, yeah, that is pretty funny. So yeah, it probably ends up being, maybe being in some instances more useful than you consider. All right, let's talk about some enhancements. Slaughter Thirst. Non-monsters within 6 inches of the bearer gain Lance. These are cool abilities, but I'm a little bit worried about them because they're sort of like, they're contingent on you having this character who can like project this aura. I think for the most part it's going to be basically like models in the bearer's unit gain Lance. How often you're going to get multiple units within that 6-inch aura is going to be a little awkward. You might be able to do it if you have like a Rendmaster or a Skullmaster that's already on the table and they're pushing up with your army, and then you're buffing nearby units. Lance is a huge bonus, and honestly, maybe it's just good on a Renmaster to just have Lance himself, because it will affect him. But I don't know how often you're going to get more than one additional friendly unit in there. And there's a couple of these. This is a pretty. Oh, I have it blocked by my camera. Sorry. There's a couple of these. Every detachment has basically one of these like auras that affects non-monsters. They're really trying to push you away from playing literally all greater demons, but I don't know. Maybe design better data sheets for the other stuff. Yeah, whatever. 35 points. It's wildly expensive. It's Lance, which you can get on some pretty high value characters, right? Renmasters have 10 attacks. And with upside that you can do it on multiple units. You can also do it on like a Skullmaster, and that unit has like 20 attacks. Getting +1 to the wound on a Skullmaster's whole unit of guys is sweet. And then you can also do like, rapid ingress stuff. You can do stuff like rapid ingress inside Bellacor's, like, no, please don't shoot me aura, and then just move up and punch somebody to death with long movement ranged units. So I think that there's going to be the capacity to deliver these stuff, regardless of the fact that you can't just charge out of Deep Strike like you can in the regular detachment in Demonic Incursion. Fury's Cage is the next one. Each time you're selected to fight, you can suffer D3 +1 mortal wounds. If you do, you get full rerolls. This is, you just like windmill slam this on a Bloodthirster? I don't know. Bloodthirsters, the biggest issue with them is that they have no rerolls, so their damage output's like wildly inconsistent. If they roll any ones to hit or wound, they just fall apart. So being able to take some damage in order to ensure that you kill whatever you charge is huge. Because this guy will he'll dumpster at night, right? Just by himself, like no problem with the Great Axe and all of the buffs. Brazen Maw, you get +2 to charge. So this is for a unit that wants to charge out of Deep Strike, likely. Most of the units that you're attached into, if you are a non-monster, if you're an infantry or a mounted character, then you can attach into a unit that has a banner, so you can be a total of +3 to charge. So you're making a 6-inch charge out of Deep Strike with something like Skull, with Blood Crushers or Bloodletters. Pretty good. That's an excellent enhancement. And to be honest, like all of these are okay. I think the Gateway unto Damnation is a points filler. This one's like kind of really trash. You get a 2+ Deadly Demise and then D3 +3 on the Deadly Demise. I guess it's good if you can ensure that you're like running into your opponent. I guess you can do it on a Demon Prince maybe, and then he's a little bomb. He's a little nuclear missile. That's probably pretty funny, because I think he goes from Deadly Demise 1 or Deadly Demise D3 to D3 +3, which is cute. The big demon's already hit for D6, so you're not really improving the stuff, and I think you're not improving the damage that much. And I think a lot of times they're inside your army, because you want to be sort of committing them simultaneously, and they will end up damaging all your units. So that one's a little bit scary. I wish this was optional. It was like if it's when it's destroyed, you can choose to use the enhancement to improve its Deadly Demise, but you can't do that. Let me look at the Demon Prince's profile here. I think that might be the place to go. He's also easier to kill, so it will trigger more often than a Bloodthirster. Winged Demon Prince is D3, so you get additional. You almost always trigger their Deadly Demise, and you get additional 3 wounds on it, so that's like cute. But it's only 10 points. That's like a filler. That's a filler enhancement. It's one of the weird filler enhancements that has the potential to backfire on you, though. You could like take it because I have 10 extra points, but it's fine. But if you take it on the Demon Prince that's giving you stealth or something, like in an aura, and your opponent shoots it, you can just blow up your whole army, which seems bad. Rendmaster. The Rendmaster, I don't believe. Does he have Deadly Demise? That would shock me. He's mounted. My PDF is taking a really long time to load. The Rendmaster does not have Deadly Demise yet. It doesn't improve your Deadly Demise. It doesn't give you Deadly Demise. It improves the Deadly Demise you already have. Oh yeah, also it's monster only. Yeah. So, yeah, not only does he not have Deadly Demise, but he also just can't take the enhancement. Yeah, there's 2 reasons it doesn't work. Yeah. Rendmasters are actually, they kind of do whatever. because their ability is like it's really loosey-goosey targeting. It's just visible and 18 inches away. You often like throw the Ren Masters like to go do actions and like put them in your opponent's deployment zone and stuff. You just do weird stuff with Ren Masters because they just like kind of go wherever. They're also not monsters, so they don't give up Bring It Down. So a lot of times, like, you're not as worried if your opponent tries to sink a bunch of attacks into killing a Ren Master rather than like a Bloodthirster or something. All right, Stratagems. Wrath Undeniable is just a fight on death. We've seen it a million times. Easy game. We'll skip that one. A lot of these are kind of boilerplate, to be honest. Gore Hungry Onslaught. You move through terrain features and movement or charge phase. It's pretty good. It is any Khorne unit, so you can do it on... and it is only terrain features as well. So it's not like the Custodes one where you can bust through models. So there are some differences, but it's any unit, so you can put it on... You don't have to put it on Bloodthirsters. You can put it on Blood Crushers. You can put it on Ren Masters. All that stuff can bust through walls. And that's rad. I don't have much to say about that. It's just really good. Skulls Beget Blood is grenade. It's just a grenade. It doesn't have like the weird requirement where you haven't have shot yet, so you can do it. You can shoot your flamethrowers, I guess. Oh, it's infantry or mounted only, so you can't do it off Cornhounds and you can't do it off monsters. So I guess nobody has a gun. Oh, the Skull Cannon does. So you can shoot a Skull Cannon and then you can choose to grenade if you want to. But yeah, it's just literally just grenade, which is cute. It throws a skull at you. You're like, ow, stop. Ouchie. Winged Demon Prince and Suicide Bomber? Yeah, I think that's the one. That's the one where I would play the Suicide Bomb enhancement for sure. It's like a Winged Demon Prince that's just going to hop in your opponent's backline. Especially because those guys are like, they're Khorne 8 then, so they're Strength 10. Like, they have an okay melee profile. Blood begets skulls. You can advance and charge. It's a charge phase timing, so it's the best possible timing for it. You can see what the rest of your turn does, and then you can elect to charge. Just a great enhancement. These are all stuff. The one thing that I think that Khorne is missing here is some sort of defensive mechanic. They have one. It's the Sheathed in Brass, but it's terrible. But otherwise, it's pretty good. Fool's Flight. So this is the anti-fallback technology. We can't do anti-fallback stuff with our Surge move, but we can do anti-fallback stuff with this stratagem. For 2 CP, after an enemy unit falls back, 1 Legionis Daemonica Khorne unit from your army within 6 inches of that enemy unit that would be eligible to declare a charge against it can now declare a charge against it. If you resolve that charge, you don't get a charge bonus. So you for 2 CP in your opponent's movement phase, heroically intervene into something that falls back from you. Interestingly, the thing that you have to, that charges does not have to be the one that you fell back from. So for example, if you have like 2 Khorne units and your opponent can get outside 6 inches of one of them, but in doing so can't get outside 6 inches of the second one, even if they didn't fall back from that second one, you can still declare the Fool's Flight against them. So yeah, this is an incredible stratagem for sure. If your opponent is very fast, you are probably forcing them to move really like farther away from you than they would like, which kind of limits their tempo, right? So if they're, let's say, move 8, like a Dreadnought or something, they have to move the full 8 inches back to not get countercharge. You also, if you're doing this with something like Bloodletters or Blood Crushers, you get +1 to charge because it is a charge roll. So if you have your instrument, then it's a 5-inch charge to get back into, or I guess definitionally, assuming that they aren't like there's not walls and stuff in the way, it's a 4-inch charge if you have a +1, because you have to get within an inch and you are within 6. So it's a 5 base down to a 4 with a bonus. Very, very high odds you get that. And then they're just re-engaged and they can't shoot you unless you're a monster. And that's sick. Last one, Stratagems not very good. Sheathed in Brass. It gives you a 4+ save characteristic instead of a 3+ save characteristic instead of a trashy like 4+ or 5+ save. It doesn't improve your invulnerable save. It improves your armor save. So this only really matters if your opponent has a million AP 0 attacks or you're like towing cover or something. But Okay. It's so narrow. It's such a narrow use case. Corn units don't have that many wounds anyway, so it's not making that much of a difference. So that's kind of a miss here. I wish we had something like, you know, a Feel No Pain or something where you could just windmill slam and keep your guys going for a little while longer. This detachment's going to be insane. It's going to be hyper aggressive and do so much damage. Like, the damage from this thing is enormous. If you're taking Red Masters, if you're taking Flesh Hounds, all the stuff that can push super far forward and just get massive damage out. It's incredibly fast. It engages everything. You fall back from it. It countercharges you. You move to screen it. It surges you. It can advance and charge. Everything deep strikes, so you can do ingress stuff. But it's incredibly straightforward. It's coming to get you. Corn's coming to get you, which is, on theme, right? It's on brand. So I really like this detachment. Again, you can do stuff like play Be'lakor. So if you're playing like pretty reasonable terrain layouts, you can stage stuff in the middle where it's hard to get shots on you, especially stuff like Blood Crushers and Bloodthirsters with the ability to go through walls is huge. You now don't need to rely on Be'lakor to deliver them, but you can also kind of play out in the open with Be'lakor as well. And you can, like I mentioned before, you can ingress stuff into Be'lakor's aura. So that you can like be out in the open, but enemies can't shoot you. That's all great. And then you're just coming in like Renmaster buffing and doing a trillion damage. So yeah, I think it's pretty sweet. Making 18 Blood Crushers very strong, incredibly strong. Yeah, especially like Blood Crushers with. I guess they already have Lance on their horn attack, so the Lance is not that big of a deal. I think the Lance is actually kind of nutty on the Renmaster. A Renmaster with Lance actually kills the whole universe by himself. This is kind of the Renmaster detachment, to be honest with you. Yeah. So I'm excited to give it a go. We'll play some 30 Flesh Hounds and make them damage 4 and kill the universe. And I think it'd be fun. I don't know. What if GW gave Warp Surge back one time? Yeah, the goal of the Sheets and Brass is to get to stack with cover, because you can only get cover for most Corn Demons if you're against AP0 attacks, but this will buff you against like AP1 or maybe 2 in cover is the only times where it matters. All right, let's talk about Nurgle next. I think let's dive in. +1 invuln strat would actually fix durability issues. Yeah, they wanted to do that with demonic invulnerability from the demonic incursion, but it is what it is. That's I don't know, not a very good stratagem to be fair. It is a little bit funny. I think demons having like I don't want to say that demons are easy to kill, but they are inconsistently like tanky, and I think that's sort of part of the design, I guess. Is that they can't really rely on their defensive like mechanics, which is maybe fine. All right, let's go. Let's talk about some Nurgle chants. Let's dive into a Plague Legion. I'm going to fix my PDF viewer, make it look a little bit nicer. Nurgle tank with 0 health boost. Yeah, that's going to be problematic. Unpaid intern is added again with Plague Legion. Yeah. So Nurgle, again, probably next to Khorne, I think has the most internal synergy. So Nurgle already is doing a lot of stuff like within, its own little sub-faction. So a Nurgle focused army is gonna look better on the table than like a Tzeentch one or even a Slaanesh one. That said, the abilities are kind of whatever. This feels like it really wants you to be playing in Demonic Incursion, but it's not. It's a different detachment. They didn't realize they're playing something else. Melancholic Miasma is the detachment rule. you extend your Shadow of Chaos for enemy units 9 inches. So enemies within 9 will get -1 battle shock tests and take mortal wounds in the battle shock. In addition, for Nurgle units specifically, so every single one of them has a 9-inch aura of Shadow of Chaos. So it's like Bellacor's aura, but only for enemies but way bigger. Pretty cool. You can do stuff like you can throw Nurglings in your opponent's army and like run guys up in there. I think the idea is that you're basically like frontlining a bunch of Grid and Clean ones or Beast of Nurgle or these like big tanky units, and then you're constantly getting most of your opponent's army in shadow because you're just like sandbagging them in the center. We'll talk about whether that's effective, I guess, as we go through the detachment. In addition, in each player's command phase, so once in yours and once in your opponent's, select one enemy unit within Shadow of Chaos. It must take a battle shock test. This effect is really cool because they're taking a battle shock at -1. For most armies, it's a coin flip or worse. And then you're getting all the benefits of battle shock. So in your turn, you have the ability to lock in objectives, which will then affect you moving on because you can potentially use that to progress your shadow and then affect more enemy units with the battle shocks. New enemy units with the battle shocks later. They will unbattle shock at the start of their turn, but you probably kill them. They also take D3 mortals, and then in your opponent's turn, you can unlock objectives from them. If they have one unit on an objective and you have a guy within 9, a Nurgling just chilling, you'll be like, hey, no, we're gonna take you a coin flip that you messed that up. That's actually sick. This attachment ability is really cool. I appreciate. It's weird, little weird for Nurgle to becoming this battle shock matters like subfaction. I don't know if that works particularly well. I understand the intention is that you're trying to play this like Nurgle army that's just trying to tie up your opponent and like attrition them out, which makes sense. Enhancements, Canker Blight. Each time an enemy unit within 6 inches of the bear, that's not a monster or vehicle, fails a battle shock test, and you're going to be forcing a bunch of those with Miasma. The bearer can use the enhancement. If it does, one model in the unit is destroyed. Each time the bearer uses this enhancement, no mortal wounds are inflicted by demonic terror. So this is basically like an ape of the enhancement out of First Company Assault Force or First Company Task Force for Space Marines. They have almost exactly this one, although that one has a once per game that kills D3 models. The big thing here is that you can fight against like heavy infantry and stuff, and you can force multiple battle shock checks on them, and then each one of them just automatically inflicts essentially maximum damage. If you the disaster is you use this on something like a Virtus Praetor or a character or a like a Centurion unit, like these big super big kind of like honorary vehicles basically, and they fail a battle shock check and you lose like a 60 or 70 point model right off the bat. So the upside is huge. Whether or not you're going to trigger it and your opponent has to fail battle shock checks as well, a little bit awkward, but it's only 15 points, so it's kind of whatever. Maggot Maws is the next one. It is in your shooting phase, select one enemy unit within 6 inches of the bear. It must take a battle shock test. Then you roll a d6. On a 3+, you take d3 mortal wounds. So it is only 6 inches, but it is shooting phase, and you can use it after advancing. So you can run up, right up on you, right up next to an enemy, and then immediately, just start of the phase, you could potentially be in shadow, battle shock that guy in shadow, run up, battle shock him again, and then he would take d3 mortal wounds from the enhancement. The enhancement does it automatically, and I guess it replaces your demonic terror. So it's a battle shock test that automatically doesn't inflict d3 mortals, but it can stop your opponent from using stratagems, I guess. It's a little bit annoying. It's the only benefit of the battle shock thing is that it has all the normal battle shock effects. It doesn't force 2 d3 mortals. That would actually be pretty cool. Let's go back to 9th with multiple detachments. Let's not do that. Army building in 10th edition is much nicer. Please no detachment, no old school detachment mechanics for 40k. What a nightmare that was. Droning Shroud, 35 points. Again, this is like an aura one. It just gives you Bellicors, please don't shoot me aura. It is monsters only, but I think you could just put it on a foot demon prince. He already wants people to be within 6 inches of him to give them stealth. And again, I think you're trying to maybe stank as much tankiness as you can. And then, yeah, you just can't be attacked outside 18 inches. This is pretty sweet. So you could leave Bellicor at home here. Although Bellicor does have his secondary aura that can force additional Battle Shock attacks if you're below starting strength. And it seems like Battle Shock is the name of the game here, so that might be good. Although you don't really want him to be in melee too early. Font of Spores is a 20.1. It is a 6-inch aura of +1 AP. It is everything. You have to assign it to a monster, but it affects all Nurgle units and all their weapons. So you can do it on guns, which is big. So that's huge. These are really competing. Like this is good so that you can deploy a little bit more aggressively and you don't get shot turn 1. But +1 AP to all your guns is like kind of nutty, right? I think that suddenly puts Soul Grinders into the realm of being actually good at killing people instead of being kind of a meme. Let's pull up the Soul Grinder datasheet here. And the Nurgle Soul Grinder has an indirect fire gun as well, so he's also one of the spiciest ones to take. So we could maybe like camp a little Soul Grinder team. Maybe we just play a bunch of Demon Princes in this detachment. Maybe we leave the Great Unclaims at home. It's the Soul Grinder detachment. So we're looking at, it's a Phlegm Bombardment is the indirect. It's a D6 +1 lethal blast. So it'd be AP2, 2 damage. So basically AP1 because it's firing indirectly most of the time. So your opponent's in cover. But then they could also take the Harvester Cannon, which is normally AP1 goes to AP2. It's actually kind of sweet. I don't know. Feels like they're a little bit low volume, but maybe it's fine. And then it also affects them in melee too, so they could go to AP4 in melee. The big thing is that all the monster weapons for Nurgle are all AP2. Pushing those to AP3 is also huge. The amount of damage you get out of a Great Unclean one once you draw to Terror that guy in Daemonic Incursion is huge. Like he usually triggers 1 to 2 lethals per swing, so he's already forcing like an AP3 hit on you, and then he gets 1 to 2 additional natural wounds. So he's usually forcing 3 or 4 wounds on somebody. And getting +1 AP on those is enormous because a lot of times they'll save like 2 of them, and you only get 2 through. But if you cut that down to 1, there's a pretty reasonable chance he just one-shots whatever he's hitting, which is awesome. Obliterators, so yeah, killing obliterators with the with the demonic terror thing, yeah, for sure. Yeah, AP on the Great and Clean One Torrent is great. I agree with that for sure. AP3 ignore cover. What a time to be alive. Let's go. All right, let's talk about stratagems. Seeping Virulence. It's usable fight phase only. The stratagem's great though. Till the end of the phase, each time a modeling unit makes an attack and on a modified hit roll of 5 scores a critical. Essentially, every Nurgle unit has lethal hits in melee. So we're doubling our number of lethal hits. That's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Love it. No notes. Let's go. Fever Visions. Your shooting phase or fight phase. It's a unit that has not been selected to attack yet until the end of the phase. Each time you make an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. After you finish making the attacks, an enemy unit hit takes a battle shock test. Again, you have an extended shadow aura, so the battle shock test might also mean some mortal wounds too. So you can use that on stuff like, again, we're like back to the Soul Grinders, right? Soul Grinders is probably shooting like D6 +4 shots between the Harvester and the Phlegm. And getting +1 to hit and potentially +1 AP on those is pretty good. Fetid Resurgence. It's usable in your command phase. It is 2 CP. Ooh, which is a lot. I don't know if I like that. It might be because you can potentially combo it with it's a little weird. The timing's a little bit weird. You can potentially combo it with Demonic Manifestation. So when you pass a Battle Shock test, you get wounds or models back, which is probably why this is upcharged. The weird part is that you could take yourself out of range of taking a Battle Shock test, because this is usable in your command step of your command phase, because it's a generic command phase ability, and then you would progress to Battle Shock and check if you're below half. The result is that you return 1 destroyed model to the unit, or D3 if you are a battle line. If you're a monster, you get D3 plus 1 wounds. You could put like Plague Drones and Beasts of Nurgle back with this, which is probably the other reason that it's so expensive. Which I think is the primary use case. Although getting D3 like Nurglings or Poxwalkers back could be huge. Yeah, returning Beast of Nurgle is cute. I don't know how often that's going to happen. If I think Beast of Nurgle tends to be very Boolean, right? Your opponent either never attacks them because they're invincible, or kills the entire unit, and then you don't get them. Although it's like a funny threat, I guess. It's definitely nice to have the effect. Rot and Renewal. You can move through train features, your movement or charge phase. Everything we just talked about. Good. Let's go. Again, it's good for our Plague Drones. It's good for our Guard and Clean ones. Merc Shadows. Plus 5 movement. This is just strictly better than Advance and Charge. Because Advance and Charge is an average plus 3.5 inches of threat, and you cannot perform actions or shoot. Even if you don't end up using the stratagem. Merc Shadows, you just pay the CP in the movement phase, and then you go 1 trillion inches. It is infantry only, so it's only Poxwalkers, unfortunately. I don't believe there's any other infantry besides characters in the sub-faction. But it's definitely nice to have. You can do double D3 because you can do Battle Shock pass, then use a strat. No, you can't do that. The timing is opposite, which is why there's like anti-synergy. You use the stratagem first, so there's a very reasonable chance that if you're on a 2 or a 3 model unit, like Beasts or Plague Drones, that automatically brings you up to above half, so you do not take a Battle Shock. If you have like 1 Poxwalker left, you might bring them back and then take a Battle Shock. The timing doesn't work that way. This must happen before your Battle Shock step. Oh, yeah, Plague Bears, sorry, Jay. Yeah. It is Plague Bears, not Poxwalkers. Yeah. Doesn't work on Poxwalkers. They're not demons. They're just zombies. They're just little zombie men. It's hyper embarrassing. I think I played them yesterday. I think I called them Poxwalkers all day. The unit archetype is very similar. Plague of Woes is the last one. It's usable in your opponent's command phase before selecting any targets for the Melancholic Miasma Detachment rule. So that's before you do the select a unit to take a Battle Shock check that's in Shadow. You target 1 Legiones Demonic unit from your army until the end of the phase. After an enemy unit takes a Battle Shock test as a result of Melancholic Miasma, select 1 other enemy unit within 9 inches of that unit. That enemy must take a Battle Shock test. So it essentially, for 1 CP, you can double the effectiveness in your opponent's turn of your detachment ability. This is a very narrow use case. It doesn't work on anywhere on the battlefield. It has to be within 9, but it could be good, I guess. So I think this detachment is really cool. I think there's some like clearly really good stuff in here. The weird part is that it feels like it isn't entirely I don't know if it's been thought through entirely. So first of all, we have no defensive technology for greater demons or for Nurgle stuff at all, right? There's literally nothing besides this thing that makes you hard to shoot at, which you already have if you take Bellicor. And obviously you can get it cheaper here, so that's you're saving some points. And Bellicor doesn't have any synergy in the army besides that. So, you know, it's nice to have, but that's something you already had access to. There's no improvement on your feel no pains. There's no damage reduction. There's no way to live once you have engaged your opponent. It also has this, like, I don't, it's not even like a sub theme. It's just the theme of the detachment is forcing battle shock checks, but there's no payoff for it besides this thing that kills infantry, essentially, which is kind of whatever. You're already taking D3 mortals. So this being, you know, occasionally, right, like sometimes an additional casualty is okay. But there's no, like, you know, get a buff against battle shocked enemies, or enemies in a range have an additional battle shock penalty or something like that. It's weird. It feels very Tyranny almost, where you have a bunch of, like, you have some battle shock payoffs, you have a ton of battle shock forcing, but the payoffs, like, I don't know, are necessarily there. I think the biggest issue is your capacity to just sort of try to tank at the center and just explode. I don't think that this plays like the Great Unclean One spam, because you don't have Endless Gift. So your Great Unclean Ones are actually just really easy to kill. Like a Land Raider defensive profile that doesn't have a Land Raider save characteristic is not that hard to kill, especially since they can't smokescreen, you can't Armor of Contempt them. So I don't know. I don't know what the army for this detachment looks like. It's almost certainly starts with a bunch of soul grinders, a bunch of guns that have +1 AP. I don't know if there's any other, like, stuff that we want to be taking in here that is going to do damage. Not really. The soul grinders are kind of the gun thing. Probably Rodigus. Guy's Flamer goes to AP3. That's pretty cool. But I don't know. I think it might just spam Poxwalkers. I think it might just be the, like, 60 Poxwalkers is the answer. Standing in front of a bunch of big guns. I feel like that might be that might be what we're doing here. Can the Resurrection Strat be used on attached characters? No, it can't. Can demons take Forge Fiends? No. No Forge Fiends in demons. Don't enemy fail battle shock force mortals? They do. Yeah, that's if they are in Shadow of Chaos, they do. So if they're within 6 inches of you and taking and failing battle shock, they'll take some mortal wounds. Do soul grinders have the good or bad version of Scuttle Walker? I have no idea, dude. I'm gonna be honest. I have never played a soul grinder in my life because I never want to have the rules discussion about how a soul grinder plays. Whether or not it's required to have a base, you know, how it's meant to be assembled, the whole Scuttle Walker fiasco. Yeah, so according to Wahapedia, it has not been updated. So you have to have a fun talk about what a 4-inch terrain feature is. It's not a section of a terrain feature that is 4 inches or less. You can move them through walls with the stratagem, but they're an 8-inch movement. Oops. And theoretically, they're either, like, really wide or they're on a big base. And one of those things is maybe true. And that makes it not very useful for them. You have to basically be touching the wall, I think, like, with your flat side to get all the way through. Like, I don't know. It's just it's a poorly designed unit just in general. But I do think that like, this is certainly the soul grinder detachment. +1 AP on every weapon is pretty okay. Especially if you are bringing Great Unclean Ones, you can also tank toughness values too, so their shooting gets better as well. Yeah, same with Defilers, yeah. The worst part is the Soul Grinder kit comes with the base, right? And so then you have to be like, how do I play this? And there is, like, a section on the instruction sheet that says that the base is optional. But instruction sheets don't constitute rules. And the rules of the core rules are that a base included with the model is the base size the model has to be played on. So I don't know, man. It's a whole discussion you have to have. Dunecrawler is already horrible to move around, and this thing's bigger. Yeah, yeah, it's so much bigger too. Let's can we take a peek at the Soul Grinder base has? It's like it's ludicrous. I think there's a oh dang. There's no picture on the GW website of the Soul Grinder on its base. It's 160 millimeter. It's like 20% larger than the Grid and Clean One base, and the Grid and Clean One base is huge. Can we? I know there are some pictures of like base. Oh, here we go. Where's this picture? Look at this little man. He's so small. He's being totally dwarfed by this huge base. Poor little guy. I'm just a little guy. Oh, man. Yeah, there's a WTC ruling about it, but that's not like, you know, WTC isn't the core rules. You know what I mean? I think that it's reasonable that I would say most tournament organizers do not require that they are played on a base, but that is not a hard and fast rule. That's something you have to get approval for in order to do, which is just silly. It's just very silly. Yeah. Right, but the instruction book also has incorrect stats for the model, right? Like instruction books can't be rules, right? So that's like a suggestion that, again, you have to ask your TO about. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's also, like, the other issue with it, and I'm soapboxing a little bit here, so we'll move on to the next attachment in a sec. But the other issue with it is that the model itself is, like, fucking miserable. Even if it doesn't have a base, it's this weird spider with 8 limbs. So if you're like you have the two options. You can play this thing with a base that's too large to reasonably be played with its current movement value and mechanics in 40k, right? The base is too big for it to be viable, in my opinion. Or you can try to hull measure with this motherfucker. And that sucks. That sucks so hard. So, like, I don't know. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's just bad. It's just bad all around. I kind of just, like, honestly, just fucking legend this thing, dude. I'm a demon player, and I don't want this in my index. I don't want put this in Age of Sigmar, where they don't play with terrain because nobody has a gun. And then likely just leave it there. We don't need this. We don't need this thing. Make it go away. Or make it like a 500-point super unit that's like super fast and does 1 trillion damage, and then put it on a huge fucking base, right? Like if this was a knight, then it would be okay. But it's not. It's a little vehicle. It's like a predator. Which is stupid. But it's like 3 or 4 times the size. I don't know, man. Alright, we're not talking about this anymore. The only place this thing is legal is Total War. They removed it from Sigmar? Did they really? Well, then why does it have a base in the kit? Is that true? Where would it be? I don't know. Blaze to Darkness, probably. Oh, they have a skull grinder. Yeah, just this. Oh, this one says it's in Slaves to Darkness. I don't know, chat. According to the website, it's still in Age of Sigmar. That it survives into 11th, yeah. Yeah, release a demon codex to just get rid of this thing. I don't want it. I don't want it anymore. They're also like, guys, look, you have a strength 16, AP 3d6 plus 2 damage weapon. Your anti-tank's fine. Is it? No, I'll never deliver this guy. He'll never get to melee. That's not happening. That's a pipe dream. Alright, but if you're looking for guns, he's the guy. He's got guns. Not good guns, but he's got them. And you can give them +1 AP. So that's cool. You also get a bunch of flamethrowers and stuff. That's a very exciting enhancement. That enhancement rules, actually. Oh, it's AOS Legends? Okay, that makes more sense. So it is technically playable in Age of Sigmar, but not not that exciting. All right, should we talk about this absolutely wild Tzeentch detachment, chat? The Scintillating Legion. I love to be scintillated, you know? Sometimes I just feel like I've gone too long without being appropriately scintillated. Hope they improve on it, make a new kit. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it should mandatorily have a base, but I also think that it should be statted in relation to its size, right? Like, this thing should be a fucking disaster of a unit, but instead it's like a little guy. He's just a little guy, except he's too big to be played reasonably. All right, let's. We haven't done Slaanesh yet. We've done that. We did Nurgle. That was the second one. Now we're moving on. No, Slaanesh should be titillating. This is scintillating. Scintillating, I think, is like gleaming, right? Yeah, sparkling or shining brightly. So there, it's like it evokes gemstones, which I think is appropriate for Tzeentch. It's sparkly. We're playing sparkles. All right, so here's the detachment ability. It's fucking wild, dude. It's 3 paragraphs. We thought we had left these really long detachment abilities in the past. No. You're gonna be wildly complicated, and you're gonna like it. All right, you start the battle with 3 flux tokens. You can spend a flux token after an advance, hit, wound, damage, saving throw, or hazardous test made for a Tzeentch unit, a Tzeentch model or a Tzeentch unit from your army to reroll the results of that roll, throw, or test. Importantly, not charges, just advances for whatever reason. Hit, wound, damage, saving throw, or hazardous. I don't know why not charges, but I guess they just wanted it to affect 1 dice rolls specifically. Flux tokens can also be spent to enhance the effect of some stratagems, which we'll talk about. Each time you spend a flux token, you reduce the number of flux tokens you have by 1, and your opponent gains 1 flux token. Whenever your opponent has 1 or more flux tokens, they can spend the flux token after advance, hit, wound, roll, or saving throw, so they can do the same thing to reroll the result of that throw. If they do, they reduce the number of flux tokens they have by 1, and you gain 1 flux token. This rule is ignored if your opponent also has to place a flux detachment roll. So you just... If you play the mirror match, you just each get 3 CP rerolls, and then you're done. You just go away. Otherwise, you just be trading them back and forth. In your command phase, if your opponent has 1 or more flux tokens, then you gain a flux token. So it's basically you get CP rerolls, but for each one that you do, your opponent also gets 1. However, if your opponent doesn't use them all, then you can gain them back. So your opponent is incentivized to burn through all of them immediately, which they'll do. So here's my issue with this detachment ability. It's really bad. Here's why. The issue is specifically And I actually, I'm not sure that this would actually matter in regards to the detachment, to be honest. You could put this in almost any sub-faction, in Chaos Demons specifically, and I think it would be a disaster. The problem is that Tzeentch demons are not units that typically, like that are widely improved by like having floating rerolls. Tzeentch offensively anyway, like I think that this is good defensively because you have army-wide 4+ invulns on basically everything, which is, so it's gonna be good. And you can do stuff like you can reroll your invulns at the end of your opponent's like phases, shooting or fight phase, and then most likely they will be unable if they're at the end of their sort of turn. They'll be unable to spend through all their tokens, then you'll gain extra tokens. It's, you know, there's some strategy you can use to it to try to get yourself more rolls. But the problem is that using them offensively is really low value because your weapons tend to be mass 1 damage or D3 damage attacks. So getting rerolls on those is super trashy. If you had big anti-tank weapons, if we were talking about Lords of Change firing laser cannons at your target, your opponent, then suddenly we're talking, right? Because you can try to manipulate the flux tokens, where you spend a couple, your opponent gains some. You try to spend them towards the end of your opponent's turn, so that when it comes back to your turn, you have more flux tokens. They have a flux token, so that you gain additional ones, and then you dump them all for a bunch of damage. Cool, except that they don't have any weapons that do that. Not to mention the fact that we're not playing in Demonic Incursion. So we don't have Everstave. So our Lords of Change are horrible. Just horrible. So it's like a situational reroll on a 4+ invulnerable save, and that's it. It's like you get a free Demonic Invulnerability every turn, which is not a very good stratagem. So like, And then here's the thing. Most of the stuff that's going to be killing you has the opposite effect. So, and this is why this is like kind of a disaster for demons in specific. And it might be that you just have to play like a bunch of little idiots, like just a ton of pink horrors or some trash, in order to stop this from happening. But if your opponent has the same, like your opponent has a 100% greater chance of having those really beneficial, those weapons that are benefited by having rerolls, and you are giving them the opportunity to reroll. So like, you're like, oh man, would the Astra Militarum I'm playing against right now love to have floating rerolls on all their multi-melted damage rolls? Probably. They'd probably have a great time with that. Tzeentch demons don't have any multi-meltas though, so the same is not true in reverse. So I think this is probably a really cool detachment ability for a different faction. I think it's extremely fluffy, but I don't think it makes sense for Tzeentch demons mechanically on the tabletop. It's cool and it makes them harder to kill, but that's basically all it does. Opponent can't reroll damage. Oh, so okay. Oh, okay. I'll reroll my lethal hit wound roll or whatever, or my devastating wound roll or something. But like that's the point, right? Like the point is that my opponent is firing higher value attacks back at me than I'm shooting at them because I'm playing Tzeentch demons. So I'm attacking my Lords of Change are shooting like 15 mid value attacks. I'm shooting like Burning Chariots with like 3 damage shots or whatever. But the attacks coming back at you benefit greater than those rerolls than I do. You're giving rerolls a number of shots. Oh, no, they can't reroll number of shots. I don't think anybody can reroll number of shots. That's not even in the thing. It's an advanced hit, wound, or saving throw. It's not a CP reroll perfectly because it also doesn't work on charges. It doesn't work on attack numbers. There's a bunch of stuff it doesn't work on. So anyway, it's a detachment roll that I think in the best case scenario ends up being a wash. It's like you basically don't play with the detachment roll. But I think that there are going to be a lot of matchups in which if using it makes your opponent better against you, and you just die. So like, it's like mind-boggling to me. I don't understand. Let's talk about some enhancements. Inescapable Eye. In your command phase, if the bear is on the battlefield, if your opponent has one or more flex tokens, you gain one additional. So if you're trying to manipulate them, so your opponent has them at the end of their turn, you'll gain an additional one on your turn. And again, so you can get up to like 5-ish in the early game, and this could stack. You could have like 6 or 7 tokens later on. But it's, so I think the idea is that you're just dumping them in one big attack. But again, like you're just giving your opponent's high value stuff the opportunity to reroll their stuff. Infernal Puppeteer. Each time the bear is selected to shoot, you can select one other friendly Legionis Daemonic unit within 9 of the bear. If you do, when selecting targets for ranged weapons equipped by the bear, you can measure range and determine visibility from one model of your choice in the selected unit instead. This blows my goddamn mind that this is a 10-point enhancement. Oh, I'm cutting it off a little bit. This enhancement's nuts, by the way. It is, I think, mitigated by the fact that it's basically only usable on a soul, not a soul bender, a Lord of Change, because you could put it on a demon prince, but like, who cares? That's stupid. It affects you target another unit within 9, then you target a model in that unit regardless of range. So let's say, for example, you have like blue horrors that have infiltrated up on turn 1. You advance the blue horrors, and you could reroll your advance roll with a flex token. Let's go. You advance the blue horrors up so that one dude can see your opponent's entire army, and then you string them back to the Lord of Change. You then target the one dude within 9 inches of the Infernal Puppeteer so he's selecting the blue horror unit as the Daemonic Azinch unit. Then you select one model of your choice in the selected unit, so you go all the way up the line to the dude on the other end of the 10 model unit, like 20 inches up the table, and measure your range from him. So like it's a windmill slam instantly, right on a Lord of Change. He sits in your deployment zone, and you string like screamers and horrors and all sorts of shit, and just dumpster all his guns out of them. The downside is that I think that your opponent always gets cover from him, which is unfortunate. You can strip that with Burning Chariots, so there is some counterplay. Because I believe that cover still gets determined normally. I'm not sure, because that's like a different measurement than target selection. It's still a visibility measurement, but it's, I don't believe that it's the same, like, sort of the same part of the attack sequence as selecting a target. But realistically, like, he can just choose ignore cover on his big gun, and it like gives him 10% less damage or something. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, but this enhancement is fucking insane. Why this isn't like 30 points, I don't understand. It's like so crazy. It just seems so insane to me. I don't know. It seems really good. It's bootleg indirect fire, yeah. It makes him a Tzeentch Fire Prism. No, it's better than a Tzeentch Fire Prism because you don't have to have line of sight to the other Fire Prism. You could, as long as you're within range of it, you could just shoot through the second unit. It's just like so wild. It's awesome. That's awesome. The detachment roll seems so bad. This enhancement seems so good. Neverblade, also I think pretty good. This is specifically for demon princes, I believe. Theoretically, you can put it on a Lord of Change. I kind of felt like, oh, are they trying to make a melee Lord of Change work? It doesn't really work very well. So it's a monster model only. You improve the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by the bearer by 2, improve the attack and armor penetration characteristics by 1, and you get +1 to hit in melee. So theoretically, a Lord of Change with the sword and the staff. And this is important. I saw a bunch of people quote this, and you can't do this. The staff or the sword Let's pull up his data sheet real quick. The sword does not get his the extra attack, the bonus enhancement attack, because an extra attack weapon cannot have its attack characteristic improved. So it only gets the other benefits, which is, to be fair, not the end of the world, right? So like you can have this dude. He starts at 613. He goes to 7 attacks at 823, hitting on 2s. And then the sword goes to 933, I guess. Which is fine, but then you're using your Lord of, like, it turns your Lord of Change. He gets 10 attacks at somewhere around strength 8 for 3 damage. He basically turns into a great unclean one in terms of melee without lethal hits, which isn't very good. And then you're using your expensive, like your 300 point ranged demon to go fight in melee, and then he'll die. So like, I don't know if that's it exciting. I think that like a winged demon prince is where this wants to live, because they go to like 8 attacks at strength 10. Plus 2 attack, strength 10, AP 3 damage is like unironically super sick. So I think I think that turns these guys into little melee powerhouses by themselves. Oh yeah, it's a +1 attack. Sorry, yeah, I misquoted. It's +2 strength, +1 attack. So be yeah, so 7 attacks. But you can go to 10 with this little enhancement thing. Yeah. And like sustain or free epic challenge. Like this dude just rapid ingressing and running around is super cool. Can't roll charges though with flux tokens. Yeah. So anyway, he becomes like he's a little corn demon prince. He becomes a little corn demon prince. Plus he gets +3 attacks on his infernal cannon, so he shoots 6 times. What a time to be alive! The least exciting buff on this data sheet, but it is what it is. He could be +2 movement, but no, we're gonna 2. Again, +3 ranged attacks. It's like King of Blades, but for Zinch. Yeah. Well, it's not quite King of Blades because that's +2 attacks. But this one gives you +1 to hit, so you can punch through hit penalties pretty nicely, which is kind of cool. I don't know. Improbable Shield is the last one. You get a 4+ field opening and psychic attacks and mortal wounds. Yeah. I could pay 30 points to do what Zinch or what Thousand Suns do for 1 CP. All right. You're not gonna take that one probably. Plus, you get to like you're just BMing all the psychic armies in the game. Why are we doing that? All right, let's talk about some stratagems, chat. Impossible Eclipse. Use it in any phase on a monster, a Zinch monster from your army on the battlefield. You select either No Man's Land or your opponent's deployment zone, or you select spend a flux token to do both until the end of the phase. The selected areas of the battlefield are within your Shadow of Chaos. I think the cool thing is that you can do that on like your opponent's like command phase. You can do it at start of the command phase, so you can pay a CP to make all of their battle shocks be at -1, which is kind of sweet. So if they've like run up with a bunch of little guys, or they're like drawn 2 action secondaries, and you're like, hey, 1 CP, all the dudes taking battle shocks that are about to try to do actions -1. I don't know. I think it's cute. Pyrogenesis. This is 2 CP, which makes me sad. It feels very expensive. And it will likely also be a flex token as well. So it costs you quite a bit. Usable in the shooting or fight phase. You target 1 Zinch unit that hasn't attacked yet. You get +2 strength to your weapons, both melee and range. If you submit a flex token, you get +3 strength and improve armor penetration characteristics by 1. So you... the Everstave Lord of Change is like, look what they have to do to like echo a fraction of our power or whatever. Like that dude's already strength 12. Strength 12, and he can pay a CP to be AP3. These guys have to spend 2 CP and a flex token to be strength 13 AP3. It's so expensive. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know. And especially too because like I guess AP +1 AP in melee is pretty good. if you have the flex token to spend on it for things like screamers, but those screamers already are anti-monster, anti-vehicle, so the strength is worthless basically. So like, I don't know. It's mostly trying to like supercharge Lords of Change, but the Lord of Change supercharge is kind of whatever. He's on flamers? I don't know. Flickering Reality. Use it in the fight phase after an enemy has selected its targets. This one's pretty wild, to be honest. It's a 1CP stratagem on a Tzeentch unit that has been selected as a target. You roll a d6. Then you can spend a flex token to reroll. So after you see the result of the d6, you don't have to pre-spend the flex token to get the opportunity to reroll, which is nice. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, on an unmodified hit roll after any reroll of the result, the attack sequence ends even if the original hit roll would have been critical. So, it is like it's a situational -1 to be hit, essentially, that gets better the higher value your opponent's the attack's targeting you are. So basically, like, I roll a d6. I'm being attacked by a weapon skill 3 unit, basically. I roll a d6, and then I can reroll it if I want to. If I get a 4, my opponent will only hit on 3, 5, and 6. Any result of a 4, the result that I rolled, essentially count as misses. It only triggers after hit rerolls, it looks like. I'm not... Yeah, I think so. The stratagem effect comes in after hit rerolls, so your opponent has the opportunity to reroll out of the affected number. But as you can imagine, if you're a 2+ ballistic or a 2+ weapon skill, you're basically just gonna suffer that essentially -1, because as long as you don't roll a 1 and then if you flex token reroll into another one, you're gonna take one number and blank it. It's so goofy. Yeah, this was almost exactly a stratagem in 9th edition, which was extremely funny. So I don't know. It's a fun and interesting way to muck with your opponent's attacks. I guess the one thing that it could do, right, is if your opponent has critical effects, if they have like lethals, you could fish for a 6, right? And then all their 6s become misses. Which I believe, yeah, the designer's note. I love these designer's notes, by the way. These are more games should do these. No critical hit effects are resolved if you have selected a 6. That's super cool. So if you can find a way if you can fish to get a 6 there, then that's going to be enormous. Also, I'm just realizing that the sidebar art is 1,000 as a rubric marine. It's not a demon. What are you doing? It's a different faction. DWY. Yeah. Equal chance to roll a 6 or a 1, yeah. Yeah, I think you like a 6 you're super psyched about, right? Because it'll bone any critical effects your opponent has. A 1 you're like, well, I guess we flex to reroll that. Fateborn Nightmares. Usable in movement phase recharge. You can go through train. We talked about that in every detachment. It's great. Fickle Fire. Usable in your shooting phase. You can shoot into melee. There's a chance that you do damage to your own guys. We talked about these a lot. Each time an enemy model is destroyed while the unit is in engagement range, roll a d6. On a 5+, your unit suffers 1 mortal wound after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks. So I think, like, ideally, maybe you're trying to, like, force horrors down your opponent's throat and then get them stuck in melee forever and then shoot into the melee. It's fine. Interesting. I guess, like, the funny thing is that the mortal wounds, unlike what was the detachment that just had one of these? Off the top of my head now, I can't remember. It was Chaos Knights, I think. I think Chaos Knights said that every time a damage is inflicted to the target, a unit in the engaging friendly unit is destroyed. This one inflicts a mortal wound each time an enemy model is destroyed. So if you select like a vehicle or like a, I guess not a vehicle, but like a big unit, like a, I don't know, heavy infantry guys or bikers or something, and you shoot into melee into those guys, and you're only going to kill what 2 or 3 models, right? So you're only going to take maybe 1 damage from this. So there's very little downside unless you're like swooping guardsmen while engaging them with pink horrors or something. The downside is though, I believe that you can't, you don't split off of this because a split is not an attack. Although GW has a really loose definition of what attacks they want attacks to be, so they might FAQ that so that works. Yeah, it was Chaos Knights. Probably Rubik's List. I'm gonna put Siege Teams in the Thousand Suns Codex. Half-Life 3 confirmed, right, chat? Oh, bad. Spending a CP, potentially wasting it if you roll a 1 does feel bad. Yeah, but at least this has a reroll. It's better than like every other stratagem in the game that says on a 2+ some effect happens. At least this one you have some opportunity with the detachment ability to fix it. So that is acceptable to me, especially because it's part of like the mechanical identity, right? It's not like you know, on a 2+, the target takes D3 mortal wounds, where you're like, but if I roll a 1, I don't do anything, and I spend a CP for nothing. This sucks. At least, you know, it's like -1 random number to hit. Sometimes that number is a 1, right? Like that's just math. But there is some safety in there. 1 in 36 times you're gonna get no value out of it, but that's very low odds. All right, Chance. Let's talk about Delirium Unmade. It's usable at the end of your opponent's fight phase. You can target 1 Legiones Daemonica Tzeentch unit from your army that is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Alternatively, you can spend a Flux token to target up to 2 instead, including ones within engagement range, which is kind of exciting. You then put them into a strategic reserve. So it's an Uppy Downy. It's probably a 2-unit Uppy Downy, which is really good. It is Tzeentch only, so you can't pick up Be'lakor, but like realistically, you know, Tzeentch a lot of times wants to do this like hop with where they are hiding behind a front line of, in this case, probably horrors or something, but you could put Nurglings and trash in the way. And then jump around behind it to positions where it's difficult to shoot them in the 18-inch no shooting aura, but they can fire it like sort of at the target, like they can fire into very specific areas of the table. Being able to pick up 2 units and do that, I think, is really important. You don't have any close deep strikes though, so that's important to keep in mind. Like you can't 6-inch deep strike, you can't 3-inch deep strike. There's none of that, so it's not as powerful as the Demonic Incursion double Uppy Downy. Although the targeting is way wider, right? So yeah, it's just good. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the problem, this detachment seems like, I don't know if this one or the Nurgle one is like the least exciting to me. I think my issue with this detachment, I think, are simply the attack profiles that you're working with. Tzeentch demons are just not good enough at shooting. And I don't think a 2 CP strat to improve their strength is really what's going to save them. So, like, I don't know. I like this thing to get them on target is awesome. Infernal Puppeteer is super duper cool. I like that they have like a good melee guy now, which is kind of sick. You can also just like take Shalaxi Hellbane and the other punchy stuff if you need to. And I think like you could. I know some people were talking about it in chat where you sort of slow burn the flux tokens until your opponent has generated you a bunch, and then The downside is, though, I think that spending flux tokens on your turn is the least optimal way to do it, because your opponent has an entire turn to spend through all of theirs, and then you don't generate any anyway. So you're spending them to reinforce your stratagems, but then your opponent's just turning those back into rerolls. And then I think, like, if you're using them to, like, burn through a bunch of, like, you want to generate like 7 or 8 flux tokens or something, and then burn through them all in one big attack. If you don't break your opponent's back, then your opponent just gets 7 or 8 flux tokens to reroll back into you. So, like, again, their guns are going to be better than your guns, because we're talking about Siege Demons here. And if you flub the beta strike, you just die. The kickback kills you because you've given your opponent like 8 CP worth of rerolls. Like, I don't know. I think this might have been. I think this might have been this is probably an Eldar mechanic or something where they have like good guns, right? Like replace Fate Dice with this or something like that. Or they're like, we would die on the kickback anyway, it doesn't really matter, but our guns are amazing. Siege Demons are the opposite. Their guns are not very good, but they're like low volume, high impact units. So your opponent being able to like roll a bunch of las cannons into you is like sucks. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. You just drown your opponent in horrors, yeah. But then like, why are we even playing this detachment? You know, it doesn't do anything. It's not actually buffing the horrors. Really. Like, you can shoot at a Bailey with them? Okay. Cool. You can pull them up out of reserve, I guess, or out of engagement, I guess. This is the Soul Grinder detachment. Yeah, every time you use the detachment ability, you give the reroll to your opponent. And then basically they use the reroll to give it back to you. And if they don't, then you generate more of them. Which is what you want to do, right? You want to stick the rerolls in their hand, essentially. So you want to use them in like your opponent's fight phase is ideally the best time. Because then they have a very limited window in which to use them. But they're so incentivized just to burn them instantly, and then you just don't get any value. You're just trading rerolls with your opponent. So, like, ideally, you want to be like, hey, I'm gonna save my rerolls until after my most valuable guns have gone, which means I'm not spending them on the most valuable guns. Because if I like go like, hey, I'm gonna spend a bunch of rerolls, like let me elucidate this for you. You go like, all right, here's my Lord of Change. We're up like 6 flux tokens, right? It's like battle round 3 or 4. We're up 1 million flux tokens. We've perfectly done our flux token thing, and now we're gonna uppy downy the Lord of Change, burn a flux token to uppy downy, burn a flux token to get +1 EP, rip into this tank. They're like, all right, I'll fucking AOC it or something. You're like, cool. All right, I'm gonna reroll a bunch of stuff. Here, I'm gonna hand you 8 saves, and your opponent goes, okay, well, I'm just gonna reroll 6 of them. Like, I don't, like, your big spend just made me harder to kill. Which wouldn't be the problem if your like weapons were like super high value, but they're not, right? If I could like pump my stuff to be like AP a trillion and just shoot through you, then it would be okay. But we're not doing that. So I don't know, man. Yeah, it's super flavorful. I agree with that for sure. I agree with that. But I was like, man, y'all printed Battle Host, dude. Is it too much to ask for an Ironstorm Spearhead? I guess so. I guess that's too much. The Ironstorm Spearhead has to also kill my own army, I guess. So yeah, I think this is a cool detachment, but it doesn't seem that good to me. All right. Should we move on to Slaanesh chat? None of this matters. We're just playing Slaanesh. Yeah. Demonic Incursion or Slaanesh. Or Bust, I guess, is what we're talking about here. Okay. Let's talk about Slaanesh. The Legion of Excss. Yeah. Let's dive in. So the first thing is that you can fall back in charge. So Slaanesh demons in your army. You can fall back. You can declare a charge and turn in which you fall back. That's fine. The most important one is Seductive Gambit. Each time you end a charge move, you can declare you will perform a Seductive Gambit. So it's when you end a charge. It's not when you're selected to fight. That's important timing because your opponent knows exactly what your opponent will have. Perfect knowledge what you're doing. I guess it wouldn't actually the timing wouldn't work very well if it worked when you selected to fight. But so it is important that it works end of charge move. But it does mean that your opponent operates with perfect knowledge. If you do, until the end of the turn, your unit does not have fights first. But each time a model in the unit makes an attack, you can reroll the hit and the wound roll. Given that Slaanesh Greater Demons tend to be kind of hard to kill. I don't want to say that they're super tanky, because their toughness is kind of whatever. But they're -1 to be hit permanently. And they have a feel no pain, because if they take the shield, which they almost always do. They're going to take... It's going to be some amount you're not taking too much damage, especially if you can do weird, like, fight phase chicanery, right? So, like, the hope is that you would kind of, like, be able to come in, strip fight first from your own unit, but then either pin the enemy unit in with, like, 2 engagements, or have them be strung so they can only engage you with a couple things, and then they get to swing first in the non-charging section of the fight phase, but your hit is much harder. I think the problem, the downside, I don't want to say problem. Obviously, like, this is like a super swingy and a super powerful ability. But the scary part is for the lighter units, the stuff that are not Keepers of Secrets. So like Demonettes, Fiends of Slaanesh, Seekers, all that stuff. Like, they would love to get full hit and wound rerolls, but if they do not fight first, they will just die. So it feels like sometimes your Keepers of Secrets get full rerolls if you want them to, maybe. There are going to be some other instances where, like, you hit stuff that doesn't hit you very hard, like you're punching into tanks and things where them fighting first doesn't do anything, so it doesn't matter, and then you get the full rerolls, which is awesome. So it does make Keepers of Secrets, like, actually just super good at killing tanks. There's also a +1 to wound. There's a +1 to wound in this detachment too, which is crazy. Not even this one. There's a stratagem. There's multiple +1 to wounds. Why not? Why having 2? The Legion of Tournament winners. Yeah, charging tanks. Yeah. There's also, like, I think, is it Fiends that give enemies -1 to hit them? I believe that's the case. I've never played Fiends in my life, but they have a they're -1 to be hit. So, like, stuff like Fiends, right? You want to play these as like a sort of like a Nurgling kind of thing, and you can also just play Nurglings. Actually, we should mention too, like, you can play stuff that fucks with your opponent that are in other subfactions. So you can try to stack your defenses, and I wonder if we can maybe, like, take a peek and see if there's any other ones in there. The Mask of Slaanesh is also a great opportunity too, because start of the fight phase, she's going to give you -1 to wound. So there's a bunch of stuff that here we go, -1 to wound. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can do to, like, fuck with your opponent, so that you can theoretically, like, a regular enemy infantry unit with -1 to hit and wound your Demonettes will probably not do that much. If they're like a Marine Intercessor or something, it's like 3 strength, 4 attacks each, and they're swinging, let's say it's even 30 times, and they suddenly are -1 to hit and to wound, so they're hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. They're gonna kill like four models maybe, and then you're gonna shred them because you're, like, devastating full rerolls. You're not gonna kill their whole unit, but you're gonna do a bunch. Yeah, Fiends are good. And then again, I think this is a detachment where super duper good players are going to be fucking nuts with it. Because let's say, for example, let's say that we fight. In my head, right? I'm Space Marine pilled right now because like the fucking insane buffs that Ultramarines got. So like, what happens if Marnius Calgar and fucking 6 Blade Guard veterans or 10, or 6 aggressors or something is like just camping the middle of the table, and I have to charge them with a Keeper of Secrets. I want my full rerolls to punch through the unit, but I'm worried about them just like killing me because it's Marnius Calgar. You can do something like engage one model on the side of the unit. Keepers of Secrets are fast as hell and can move through walls in this detachment. So we're going to find a way to get the charge that we want, right? So let's say like we engage one dude off to the side. So maybe 2 models can fight me. Then we charge a Demonet unit on the other side and base everyone else in the unit. Suddenly, I'll choose my Keeper of Secrets to fight last. I swing with the Demonets. They kill a guy or something. It doesn't matter. But my opponent goes, hey, I'll fight next. Swings back at the Demonets and kills them, but nothing gets into the big unit that's actually going to kill them. Then the Keeper goes and just shreds them. You're giving up value, but the amount of additional damage you get is nuts. To be fair, in most instances like that, the Keepers, and this is actually kind of like I don't know if it's clever. Well, this is like the opposite. This feels like the opposite of the Siege ability because it feels like it synergizes way better with the profiles. Like they actually read the data sheets that they were giving this to. The Slaanesh Greater Demons are like dedicated heavy infantry sweepers, right? They're like mid to high, like they're mid strength 6 to 8, high AP, high volume. So they want to be killing these infantry units, but the problem is they don't punch up very well. So in the instances where you need the rerolls to kill big stuff, you can just do that. And if you're fighting like a Land Raider or a Leman Russ, it doesn't matter if they hit you first. It's not going to do anything, like we talked about. But if you're fighting the little infantry, you don't necessarily need the rerolls. The rerolls are nice, and if you can set up a situation where you get them, then you're feeling good about yourself. But you're probably still killing half the unit without the rerolls anyway. Even if you just have to sink a Keeper of Secrets into a bunch of dedicated melee infantry, you're going to kill a shit ton of dudes, regardless of whether or not you're rerolling. So, like, I don't know. This is an insane detachment ability. It's so nuts. Oh, man. Opponents have +1 to hit. They can be affected by both Fiend and Nurgling Auras. That's true. That's true. Yeah, you can get through hit bonuses. There's not too many +1 to hit and melee bonuses in the game, but they definitely do exist, and you can punch through them. Let's talk about enhancements. Okay, so super sick on the Seductive Gambit. You also get Shellaxi, sort of like generally, and if you're taking a bunch of Slaanesh Graders, she gets +1 AP from having Keepers of Secrets nearby. She doesn't need the detachment ability at all. She likes fall back and charge, to be fair, because she gets stuck in melee sometimes. She doesn't have a high volume, but she doesn't like this. This doesn't do anything for her because she's full rerolling anyway. However, the detachment just sort of generally buffs her too, and she can go into some of those really tough units and then just like -1 attack them and stab the character out of it to get rid of all their leadership buffs, and then suddenly you're feeling pretty good. Do not give this to a newer player. I think do not give most of these to a newer player. I'll be honest. I think Demonic Incursion, demons are demons like the most complicated at this point. Are they like the most complicated faction to play? It's like kind of all of these are very, very hard to play. I would have said it was like Grey Knights up until everyone's just gonna move to the new like Purgation's force and then just kill everyone. The Corn Demon one is very straightforward, but if Corn Demons just run at you, they die and lose the game anyway. So you have to play smart regardless. I think you might just not give any of these to new players. I don't know. Siege seems doable. I think the Flux token mechanic has to be babied so hard that you need like such a mastery over it in order to be good. I don't know. Thousand Suns. Oh, it might be Thousand Suns. It might be Thousand Suns. Yeah, I imagine Thousand Suns are probably more big brainy than this stuff. Like this is good, but this is really strong. But I don't know. I don't think that it's that difficult to know when to choose to full reroll. So yeah, it's probably Thousand Suns. The Nurgle one seems like, I don't know, very, very tough. It's not very straightforward. All right, let's talk about some enhancements. False Majesty is the first one. You put it on any Slaanesh unit. Non-monster Slaanesh units within 6 get +1 to wound. The reason that this is so nuts, so this is Eat your heart out, Corn. We have your aura enhancement, but better. The reason that this is so nuts is because of Celeste. Let me pull up her datasheet real quick. Or their datasheet, because there's 2 of them. So here's this is like the wombo combo of all time. Celeste's leadership ability is that successful. It's unmodified. Just kidding. All right, just forget I said anything. Celeste gives you critical 5-ups to your demonettes if the wound roll is successful. But it's unmodified 5-ups. It's not so you calculate the critical wound before you add the +1 to wound. So they will inflict some number of regular wounds on 5s and then some number of critical devastating on 5s. You can't stack those 2 things together. I thought you could. That's what I get for not reading the datasheet beforehand. I know. I've played this game before, I swear. Do I play this faction? I don't even know. Jesus Christ. Dreaming Crown. 30-point enhancement. It's the same thing, but you get +1 to hit. Corn demons depend on staging behind walls. Yeah, and rapid ingress play and stuff. Like it's a melee army, right? If you can get your head around melee armies, you'll be good at corn demons. They're outside of having like generic, like I have fucking lance and lethal and melee or whatever. Like they just have every benefit that a melee army needs to have to succeed. Yeah, Celeste also wouldn't be affected themselves. Yeah. Although are they mounted? Oh, they are a monster. Yeah. It's weird that they're a monster, but like a skull cannon is mounted. Like. What is this lady standing on the head of this man, if not a mounted unit? But that is a good call out, though. Yeah. Avatar of Perfection. It's a monster model only. Start of the phase, if there are no other friendly units within 6, you can reroll advance charges and ignore modifiers to move characteristic and advance or charge rolls. This one's like just fine. Like reroll charges is good, but there's like this rider on it. You're not within 6 inches of any friendly models, so I don't know. It's kind of like a narrow. It's a narrow use case, and it's also not like the biggest upside in the world. Reroll advanced charges is okay, I guess. Soul Glutton is the next one. This is their like kind of Soul Stealer blade, although it's not quite as exciting. It's only 10 points, so it's just a points filler. At the end of the fight phase, if one or more enemy models were destroyed as a result of your attacks, you would regenerate D3 wounds. It's fine. I think I would say it's good. You probably windmill slam this on a keeper as long as you have the CP for it, because an additional D3 wounds on a keeper of secrets is pretty valuable. But it's not like gonna totally change your list. Let's talk about some stratagems. Thieves of Pain is the first one. Usable any phase after a wound is allocated to a Slaanesh unit from your army besides a monster. So you target the unit that is being wounded, and then you select another unit within 12 inches of them. Until the end of the phase, while the selected unit is on the battlefield, each time a model in your unit would lose a wound, inflict one mortal on the selected unit instead. So it's like it's a cogitated martyrdom for Mech in 8th edition. Whoever remembers that disaster of a stratagem. You target the unit being shot at, and they pass all their damage to the second unit. It inflicts mortal wounds, so you can like feel no pain them. So a keeper could feel no pain them. I think there's another character with the feel no pain, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the Contorted Epitome would have a 4+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. So you can have like essentially like 16 ablative wounds off this character potentially, which could be cool. The downside is that you can't use it to soak damage off of monster units, so you have to use it on your smaller stuff. And to be honest, like slash stuff tends to be kind of like efficient points per wound. So I don't really know where like what you're that excited about protecting, unless your opponent has just a couple of attacks that could kill something holding an objective or something. It's like it's nice to have, but you're not like using it to wombo combo out unkillable Keepers of Secrets or something. You could also use it to fight last with something really important, right? If you're like, oh, I really need to kill this unit, so I'll do full rerolls and fight last with my Demonettes or something, and your opponent's like, well, I'll swing at them, and you'll be like, all Thieves of Pain over to this fucking other thing that's not in melee to keep them alive. So like it synergizes with the detachment ability pretty nicely too. The Soul Grinder is a monster. You can't target the Soul Grinder with the stratagem, but you can pass wounds to it, I believe. But I'll fact check myself. I don't believe that anything in the faction is vehicles. Oh, it is vehicle. No, just kidding. Well, I'm a silly goober then. No, you can definitely soak off a Soul Grinder. Oh, that's cute. All right, well, we're just like finding every detachment is about Soul Grinders apparently. Yeah. Shows you how much I play Soul Grinders. Literally, have never put one on the table in my entire life. Like, I don't know. Like dozens and dozens of games in with demons. I've never even looked at that data sheet. They're desperate to sell kids. Yeah. Archagonists, although it's might be archagonists. I don't know. 2 CP stratagem. Use it on a monster unit or up to 2 monster units excluding or Legionnaires demonic units excluding monster units. You get +1 to wound on them. I love this. It's 2 CP, but you either do it on a big huge unit that's doing 1,000,000 damage, or you're doing it on 2 little units, so you get a ton of value out of it. Sick. This is great. This is a great 2 CP stratagem. +3 strength, not as exciting for 2 CP. +1 to wound on 2 separate units, much more exciting. poor Zeech. They're having a tough time over there. Or up to 2 Soul Grinders. That's true, I guess. And the Slaanesh Soul Grinder, I think, actually might be the best one. Because it has the devastating gun. So +1, so it's also really good at shooting it. So like, I don't know. They also are okay with fighting last too, I think. Man, it is the Soul Grinder in like fucking. It's the Soul Grinder day. I didn't even realize. So why is everything synergized with Soul Grinders so well? That's so stupid. Stop it, GW! Stop it! I don't want Soul Grinders to be good. I want them to be bad and out of the game because they're stupid. Fucking. Oh man. Sensory Excruciation. Usable in your command phase on 1/monster unit on the battlefield. So not Soul Grinders, as I've just learned apparently. Each unit on the battlefield. This is cute, by the way. Each unit on the battlefield within Shadow of Chaos must take a Battle Shock test. So somebody was saying that it's better than Shadow in the Warp, but it's not really, because you can use it on. It only affects the things in Shadow. And it's only on your command phase, so you can't do it on your opponent's turn, and it mostly won't affect their army. It will just affect your stuff. Everything takes Battle Shock test. Everything in Shadow in Shadow of Chaos will take a Battle Shock test. Subtracting 1 if they're below half strength, so it's harder. It does stack with the regular Battle Shock. As we talked about previously, though, because it's usable in command phase, it comes into play in the command step, so it happens before your Battle Shock step. So there is a chance that you would then half strength yourself and then be able to sort of unbattle shock. It's also not optional. They must take a Battle Shock test if you use the stratagem. So there is the opportunity for you to just like mess up your own scoring. Which is funny. The benefit, as the designer's note implies, the benefit is that if there are enemies in your shadow, you can deal damage to them, and if there are friendlies in your shadow, you can heal them. So if you're like, hey, I have a couple units on this objective and we're shadowed, so our leadership is amazing. I'm probably not going to lose primary for using the strat, but I've taken damage on my graders. You're like, boom, a Battle Shock across the board, get a bunch of wounds back. You also can combo this with additional stuff that affects your Battle Shock. If you're going first, for example, you can flip into Bellacor's reroll Battle Shock tests aura, and then use the stratagem, and then everything within 6 inches of him is rerolling Battle Shock tests. So like, he has some synergy in here too. This is like a really cool stratagem. The stratagem's awesome. I love it. It's like, it's such a gamble. It's a risk management kind of deal, but the upside is really big because forcing Battle Shocks on yourself is huge. This is the kind of synergy, like internal synergy with the army roll that I think is awesome. It gives you control over it. It has downside, but the downside is mitigatable by your positioning. I think it's really, really cool. What a cool stratagem. And it's also not like, I don't think it's going to entirely break the game, and I don't think it's going to be usable in every situation. And sometimes you just Battle Shock yourself at the start of your own turn, and then your opponent kills you. So, like, you know, not only did I not get wounds back, but I also can't use stratagems anymore. And I lost my objective control. So, yeah, I think it's cute. Yeah, it's potentially a lot of feeling for sure. It's potentially a lot of feeling, but let me tell you, the number of 5-up leadership checks you fail is actually a lot. When you start taking many of them, it starts happening quite a bit. And Battle Shocked Keepers of Secrets are super sag. You're like, oh, I was gonna go complete an Engage in All Fronts and move through a wall. Well, I can't do any of that now because I used my heal strat, which accidentally killed me. So you have to decide whether you're gonna do it. You have to consider whether it's worth potentially losing that unit for the turn, essentially. We did talk about the Zinch detachment. That was the last one we talked about. We had a whole discussion about it and how strange and like anti-synergistic it is. Phantasmal Longing is the next one. You can go through walls. We talked about those. That's not particularly new. Cavalcade of Blades is the next one. Selects one enemy unit within engagement range of your unit after you charge. It does impact attacks. It's just a Hammer of Wrath. Roll a d6 for each model in your unit, or 6d6 if your unit is a monster. For each 4+, you just take a mortal wound. Interestingly, if you have Celeste in the unit, it just defaults to 6d6, regardless of whether or not Celeste is in melee. Or I guess you can choose. It's a d6 for each model, or 6 instead. No, it's 6 instead. Yeah. So if you're a monster, it just defaults to 6d6. So even if you have all 11 models at engagement range, you're just rolling 6 dice, which is a little bit funny. That's a little anti-synergistic, but doesn't really matter though. I don't think that's going to come up too often. But mortal wounds on the charge is sweet. Why not? Never say no to a nice tank shock. I appreciate as well that they've done their best to give modicums of core stratagems back to these detachments, right? Because we have several like grenade style stratagems, and we have like tank shock style stratagems, which I think is cool. We're still missing go to ground and smoke screen, but you know, it's okay. We're close enough. You could go through walls with the soul grinder. That's true. That is true. You could also go through walls with literally anything else. This is a soul grinder contextual and do this. That is true, but it's not a monster, so it would just roll 1 dice. So you could pay a CP for a 50-50 chance to do 1 mortal wound. So you know what? Yes, you can definitely do this and tank shock your opponent. But why? Yeah. Well, the tank shock is it's toughness value. So it's, I think soul grind is 11. So it would be 11 on 5s and then 1 on a 4. It's all right. Overwhelming Excess is the last one. It's usable in your opponent's shooting phase after an enemy unit has selected targets. You target one /unit that has been selected as the target of the attacking unit's attacks. The attacker must take a battle shock test at -1. Already pretty okay. Subtracting 1 from the result. If the test is passed until the end of the phase, each time a model in the attacking unit makes an attack that targets your unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. If the test is failed, In addition to being battle shocked until the end of the phase, there's a comma there. I was like, battle shocks you until the end of the phase. That doesn't make sense now. In addition to being battle shocked, until the end of the phase, the attack unit cannot select your unit as the target of any attacks. That unit can select new targets for any attacks that targeted your unit. So, this will also apply. Shadow of Chaos stuff if they are in range. So you could potentially be -2 to battle shock. We had an interesting discussion. The term I was at yesterday. Some players were under the impression that there was no cap or there was a cap on battle shock manipulation. There's actually not. There's a cap on your leadership characteristic modifiers, but you can stack battle shock test modifiers. So you can be -2 on your battle shock test. That's like Tyrannid's bread and butter. They give you like -3 on tests all the time. Or -1 leadership and -2 on test or something like that. But so you could potentially be forcing a battle shock at -1 and force the target, in addition to doing mortal wounds, force the target to retarget. If they're in Shadow of Chaos, they would take mortal wounds, obviously. Interestingly, I don't know what happened. I believe that if they were to retain their original target, all of the models in the unit would make their attacks regardless of whether or not they died to the mortal wounds from Shadow. However, because the stratagem causes you to retarget, I believe that if you kill anyone with those mortals, they actually just lose those attacks. So there's like 2 extra downsides to failing. Not only do you have to retarget, you may also lose attacks, and you're also just straight up taking damage. It's crazy. It's a budget sigil of Exigence. Well, it's different, right? Because sigil doesn't retarget you; it just it moves you. Like you can use sigil to like just put yourself into a position where you fight your opponent. This stratagem is really cool. And I think this whole detachment is great. This detachment seems absolutely nutty. I'm a little bit upset because I don't know. I don't like Keepers of Seekers very much, but this is definitely the Keeper of Seekers detachment, and it's definitely doing the Lord's work here. Yeah, I think there's kind of no stinkers in this entire. These 2 pages are basically like straight fire. Like, I guess this reroll charge, like reroll advanced roll thing that you're probably not going to take, but like, who cares? Everything else is great. So, I don't know. It's the Soul Grinder detachment? Get out of here. I will accept nothing as the Soul Grinder detachment. Slash and Corn looking good? Yeah, the Corn one looks pretty solid. I mean, it's really straightforward. I feel like Nurgle, I don't know. I feel like Nurgle might be better than we give it credit for. I think that the scary part is that, like, I think it wants you to put a bunch of Grid and Clean ones in the middle of the table, and then your opponent's going to kill them. If you ever attacked a Grid and Clean one that isn't Ed, you're like, oh, these guys just die. It's like attacking a normal vehicle. You're like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like a Vindicator, basically. Which is maybe that's just fine. Like, is that okay? I don't know. But it feels like you want to be taking like a bunch of guns. You got your Soul Grinders in the back shooting with +1 EP, and then you're tanking toughness with the Great Unclean ones, and then you have some like War Dog Brigands or something that are shooting at you. And then on top of that, you're forcing a Trillion Battle Shock test. So you're just messing with your opponent's capacity to like use stratagems and actually fight you. I think that's the idea. It feels a little reactionary, which is a little bit sad. It's not quite as proactive as the other detachments, but there's something there though. The Tzeentch one is whatever. Tzeentch removing cheats from the table, putting the reserve is scary, but you can do that in Demonic Incursion, and it's better at it. Like the index enhancement hasn't gone away. We can just be playing Index Hammer. And you get 2 units out of Shadow of Chaos that you can then 6-inch Deep Strike and then charge. And you can be +1 AP, and you can have Everstave. And all you have to give up is this like weird, like sort of pseudo anti-synergistic like detachment roll. So like, I don't know. I'm certainly willing to be proven wrong by somebody unlocking the Tzeentch detachment and absolutely killing it. I don't see it. Speaking personally, maybe I'm a big stupid head, and this is too big brain for my little pea mind, but I'm not seeing it, chat. And reroll saves and endless gift. Like, and Tzeentch demons get D6 plus 4 damage cards in their codex. That's good, yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see how it goes today. You're playing against the new guard with Tzeentch demons? Well, yeah, let me know down in the comment section how your game goes. Because I'm fascinated. I like this detachment for the theme. And to be fair, it's unfortunate that I think Tzeentch demons might just be hamstrung by their data sheets. Like, I think this could be a good detachment ability, like Odysseus is saying in the chat. If you had laser beams, like big laser cannons that were like high value on your lordship change, you'd be like, this is sick. I'm gonna get a bunch of cool rerolls, and then my opponent gets rerolls, but mine are like fucking crazy devastating weapons, and then my opponent can like reroll to kill me, but I've already attacked them and like done a bunch of damage. But I think they might just be like, they're the least synergistic faction or sub faction in the whole army, and they're the most reliant, I think, on enhancements. So I don't know. I think if you rewrote all the Tzeentch data sheets and they were like had more internal synergy, so they could stack buffs better, or they had slightly better attack stats or something. But I think maybe it's an issue with the units, not the data sheet, or not the detachment itself. But that's the problem I'm seeing with it right now. New Scions looking strong? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we haven't talked about them because I was at a tournament yesterday, but I do actually have to jump off in about 10 minutes here because I have to go to an interview. I'm being interviewed on the Astartes Anonymous podcast, if anybody watches that. So I'm gonna be on their episode this week, which would be pretty cool. Yeah, I'll probably do a live stream either tomorrow or the day after, and we'll go through some of these other factions and do some list builds for them that I haven't talked about yet. Is this confirming that demons are getting rolled into a faction specifically? I don't think so. No. There's no confirmation of that. In fact, I don't believe there has been any official messaging to that end at all, as far as I know. I don't believe the Games Workshop has ever said that's happening. I think it's been a rumor. Thought I was getting a job? I could never. I would never, chat. Then you wouldn't get my live streams every day. What would you do without me, chat? So yeah, the more I talk about the detachments, I think the more I'm excited about them. I'm like running through the PDFs here. The coordinate detachment has just like a Slaanesh guy. Right? That's the Slaanesh thing, right? That's the Slaanesh one. Yeah, Tzeentch is the little fireball. Yeah, Slaanesh is the little mirror. They just have a Slaanesh dude on it. What is happening with these background images, dude? the Tzeentch one just has an entirely different faction. This one is a different sub-faction. This is a Death Guard guy. Wait a minute. Yeah, that's just a Space Marine. What? That's a Terminator. Who made these? I think this is Fulgrim? This looks like armor. This kind of looks like an Emperor's Children thing, but it's too narrow. You can't really tell. This definitely looks like some sort of Emperor's Children guy. Maybe they are subtly hinting they're getting rolled in. I don't know. Khorne's gonna get rolled into Slaanesh. They're gonna become one faction, and then everyone else gets turned into their own stuff. Funny. That's funny. Yeah, Bellacor's out of work. Yeah, I don't know how they would build. Like demons have so much, like there's so much overarching stuff in demons. I don't know how you would build it with into their own sub-factions. I think you could do it like Imperial Agents, probably, where it were demons. I don't think you could take away like the demon faction, but it might just remain as an index. But I think you would basically do an Imperial Agents where like Death Watch remains its own index, so Legion of Shadow would be its own thing, and they have like whatever the current index is with some detachments. And then you do an Imperial Agents where there's a duplicate datasheet in the other sub factions for some of those special units, and I think that would be totally appropriate. I think that would be fine. It would be really weird for them to just like cut all of the cross sub-faction stuff in the entire faction. That'd be nuts. Is the tinfoil hat that they only get 4 detachments because they won't get a codex? Why giving them 4 detachments? Why else give them 4 detachments? That's a great question. I think it's probably that their codex will take a while. And to be honest, like, I don't even think that they necessarily need a codex. I'm perfectly fine, speaking as somebody who has gone through the roller coaster ride of playing Demons this edition, that I think the index is fine. Especially now that there's a bunch of other ways, like there's detachments that actually like meaningfully improve your damage. I think that the index has legs for a while. And you could very easily be like, a year down the road, be like, hey, we're gonna pump AP inside your auras or something if the metagame has skewed too far, to keep them in line. The real question is whether or not in the short term, how well they're going to survive the Space Marine apocalypse that's about to come. Because Space Marines were already, I think, the toughest matchup for demons, and now they get +1 to wound your whole army. So I don't know. It's like kind of a nightmare. I'm a little worried about that for sure, and at least for the next month or so, I might have been a Space Marine player my whole life. I just never took my Space Marine army. I swear, it's definitely not brand new, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. Tau and Sisters that need new detachments, yeah, which is sad because they're some of the most recent codexes, right? Like Tau's not less than a year old. Sisters are a couple months ago. The Tau feels like an oversight because I think they basically forgot that Retaliation Cadre was so reliant on 3-inch deep strikes to be successful, and like having a 2 CP 6-inch deep strike strat is just fucking so bad. So I think they need to rebalance Retaliation Cadre, at the very least, because that was one of their highest performant detachments, and they just like took it out back and shot it by accident. It got caught in the crossfire from fucking Aquilons. Like it got nerfed because of a different unit in a different faction, which happens all the time, but it just like sucks. Tau has other good detachments, yeah, but I think their attack profiles are kind of flagging. Pariah Nexus, I think being more aggressive too probably doesn't help. Where you're focused more on killing people than having like high maneuverability, and that was something that Tau had in spades, right? They had like 1 trillion infiltrating units, 1 trillion scouts. They'd be all over the table, and then in last edition they would be like, hey, we're gonna score a bunch of points in addition to shooting you, and now they're just like, well, we have to shoot you, and if we fail to kill you, we don't score any points. So like this sucks. But they were doing okay because Rick Cadre, I think, kept them in it, and good Kauyon players. But I don't know. I think it feels like they're getting power crept a little bit, maybe. Yeah. Have $800 a crew. Yeah, I guess that's true. We haven't seen the true menace of the Crude Hunting Pack come back with their like new and improved crew units. Oh. That was foretold, but maybe we didn't see play. Although I don't know if that survives the Space Marine. The Space Marines coming through. The Space Marines can like casually clear hordes if they need to, right? If they build for it at all, like they'll the stupid intercessor brick that sits in the back of their army will just kill massive numbers of recruit every turn. So we'll see. Monkaz always been strong. Monkaz feels mediocre to me. I don't know. Every time I see Monka played, it does okay, but always feels like it's not quite enough lethal hits, not quite enough, especially because the turns where you really need to confirm the kills on rounds 4 and 5, it turns off. Whereas Kalyan, you can elongate the game. You can like move block turn 1, turn 2 you get the push with the Exemplar guy, and then round 3 you're fighting. For the bottom of round 5. Whereas Monka feels it's front loaded on periods of the table where it's a lesser effect and it's front loaded to the point where your opponent has more opportunity to control what you can do, which seems like it just does okay. I don't want to say it's bad. I don't think it's bad by any stretch, but I don't think it's as good as Kalyan. 10 intercessors with a random lieutenant. Yeah, dude, I played the finals game in the tournament I played yesterday. I played against a guy with just a unit of 5 to sticky his home objective. And that unit of 5 would just be like, let's just stand still and just double tap like this fucking, I don't know, great unclean one. Take 4 damage. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. I don't like this. Just 5 dudes for 80 points was crazy. They were like, hey, I'm going to kill that Nurgling squad now. I was like, okay, well, it's dead. You got it. They're like, I'll kill that Fleshhound squad. It's dead. Oh, okay. Cool. Well, that's more points than you're worth, and I can't do anything about that, so you should keep killing my utility all game. Yeah. I don't even know if intercessors were the most egregious change in that update, and they just seem super good at fighting other infantry, which is a fine place for them to be, I think. But we'll see. It wasn't like those units were going to survive regardless, but it was cool to see 5 intercessors kill them. Oh, man. All right, chat. Well, that's going to be it for me today. This was a super duper fun discussion. I like talking about these new Demon data sheets. I'm excited to play them this week, so come follow me on Twitch. I'm about to go do this interview in a couple minutes, and then I will be live later on this evening. I do have a scheduled game. I'm going to look on my calendar to make sure I know when that is. That's at 4 p.m. U.S. Eastern. We are playing demons. However, it's old demons. It's like index demons. So we're up against Ultramarines again for it's going to be like the 4th game in a row. Holy shit. Although it's pre-buff Ultramarines, so we'll see how things go. That's going to be at 4 p.m. U.S. Eastern, so approximately 2 hours from now, but we might push it a little bit depending on how long this interview goes. That's going to be over on Twitch. Please follow me over there, twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. I'm just going to put it in the chat. Here you go, everybody. And then I will be live probably every day for the rest of the week over on Twitch as well, playing some games with either this new stuff or the new stuff we get later on. So with that, folks, I'm going to go ahead and close things out. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Remember, keep it classy and have happy wargaming, all that stuff. And I'll see you later.